Well, hey everybody, happy Saturday Eve. Hope you have big plans for your Saturday. You got your Saturday decorations up and you're all prepared to celebrate the holiday. And good for you. And tonight, a special dinner maybe for Saturday Eve. Anyway, being it's Friday, we're going to do our normal shout-outs, our continuing story of Frank and Abby and the Answers Man. It'll be chapter 11 this week. And, of course, our groaner. And Rowan, did you have something to say? Did you? Did you want to come say hi to everybody? Well, come here then. Up you come. There he is. Well, say hi. Yeah, what do you think? All right, well, our shout-outs this week, we have our 3 normal shout-outs, because we don't do shout-outs for Abby normal. You check her channel out if you want. I don't know who she is, but punch that into the search engine and see what comes up. But our normal shout-outs for this week are for Thirsty Rabbit Tanks to You. And Thirsty Rabbit does a great video about fish keeping down in Australia. It has a whole room dedicated to fish tanks and a few other little friends. But yeah, check out Thirsty Rabbit Tanks to You. And it's, well, I'll put up the normal bubble and I'll put the links in the description as always. Our second shout out is Gary Ghostbuster. Gary is an excellent photographer and videographer and does videos around different things in England. The last few he's put up have been to do with the Lancaster Mining Museum, and they had a steam day when there was big steam tractors and that there, and different things like that. So check out Gary Ghostbuster. And last but not least, David Espinosa. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, David. I don't want to insult you by any means. But David is a guitarist and a one-time member of a quite popular band in Spain. And he does little short guitar lessons on different chords, different things you can do to change up the sound on your guitar, make it warmer, make it more dramatic. If you play guitar, check him out. I don't play guitar, but I love watching his videos. He's quite the guitarist, and so when he takes the time to not just show you chords but also to play something, yeah, I'm just in awe of him. So be sure to check out David, and I'll again put names up in the loop here and links to these 3 channels in the description box for this video. So that's Thirsty Rabbit Tanks to You, Gary Ghosthunter. Did I say Ghostbuster before? It's Ghosthunter. And David Espinosa. Alrighty, time to move on. We're now past the point. We know Pastor Dennis is still alive. He's been found, and he and Frank have given their statements to the Sheriff's Department, and we're moving on now from chapter 10 to chapter 11. So let's get on with the story. Do you have any idea who Debbie's partner in crime was? Abby broke the silence after about 10 minutes of driving. I'm not sure, but 2 possibilities come to mind. First, there's Jared. His alibi is now shot with Debbie being implicated. And second would be Robert Thomas. I honestly can't think of a motive for Debbie and Jared, but Robert might have seen removing Pastor Dennis as a way for him to become the new pastor at Salem Tabernacle. What I don't understand is why Debbie would risk a criminal record to help him. Well, all we can hope is that Debbie is caught and willing to come clean about the whole mess. It really is mind-boggling. We returned Prue's car to her after stopping by Alamo to pick up a rental car. Then we headed to the nearest restaurant for a bite to eat. We settled in a booth and perused the menus. Abby, there is something I have to ask you. Abby set down her menu and looked at me. Yes, Frank, what is it? That kiss you gave me, I was wondering if it means you have feelings for me. Abby blushed right to the roots of her hair. I'm sorry about that, she said, but yes, I do have feelings for you. I felt something that first day we met, but I tried to deny it meant anything. The truth is, the longer we've worked together, the stronger those feelings have become. I'm really sorry. I hope you can forgive me. If you want my resignation... No, that's the last thing I want is for you to resign. The truth is that I've had feelings for you also. I think it was love at first sight when I looked over the top of my desk and saw you standing there. I just hadn't said anything because I was afraid I would scare you off. We sat there gazing at each other until the waitress came to the table to take our orders. Over supper, we talked about our hopes and dreams and discovered we shared many things in common. On the drive back to Ryeville, I silently cussed the automotive engineers who had decided that all cars should have bucket seats and center consoles. It would have been nice to have Abby sitting right next to me, but I settled for holding hands. It was almost 11 when I dropped Abby off at her house. I kissed her goodnight and headed back to my place. I let myself in using Abby's keys, which she had lent me since mine were MIA, and headed upstairs to my apartment. I showered and crawled into bed, feeling totally exhausted, and in spite of the day I'd had, fell into a deep sleep. I suddenly found myself trapped in the fallout shelter again. I couldn't get out. I kept calling for help, but no one seemed to hear me. I climbed the ladder to the hatch, but the wheel on the hatch wouldn't turn. I started banging on the hatch, bang, 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 and calling out my name. Frank, Frank, are you okay? Why was I calling my own name? I suddenly woke up in a cold sweat, and after a moment realized that Abby was pounding on my door and calling my name. I got up, threw on my bathrobe, and went to the door. Good morning, Abby. What's wrong? Oh, Frank, thank God you're all right. I thought maybe something had happened because of that hit on the head. Well, I do still have a bit of a headache, and I was having a very unpleasant dream, but otherwise I think I'm okay. Are you aware that it's 10:30? I came to work, and when you weren't down in the office, I assumed you needed a little extra sleep. But by 9:30, I was starting to get concerned. And when you weren't in the office by 10:30, I just felt I better check on you. I never even thought about the fact you could have a concussion. And if you do, you shouldn't have been left alone. You should go see the doctor today. I pulled Abby into my arms and kissed her on the top of her head. All right, I'll go and see the doctor. But first I'm going to shower, get dressed, and grab a bite to eat. Then I'll come down to the office. Once I've managed that, I'll call a doctor and see if I can get an appointment. Can you recommend a good doctor? Abby laughed. Yes, Dr. Gerald Barstow is not only the best doctor in town, but he's the only doctor in town. Dr. Barstow? I asked, looking at Abby with a raised eyebrow. He's my uncle, so I think I can pull a few strings to get you in to see him. So you do what you said, and I'll go downstairs and call his office for you. Come on. Come on. You coming up? Oh, Mr. Browen. Mr. Browen. Yeah, you just like to be the center of attention, don't you, huh? Yeah. Say hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm listening to the story too, aren't you? Mm-hmm. All righty. I'll go downstairs and call his office for you, all right? All right, I agreed. I gave her a kiss and released her from my embrace. Abby headed downstairs and I headed to the bathroom. A half hour later, I walked into the office feeling 100% better. I helped myself to a cup of coffee and went over and perched on the corner of Abby's desk. Good morning. I believe I omitted that little greeting earlier, I said to Abby, raising my coffee mug in salute. Good morning to you too, she replied. You have a doctor's appointment in 15 minutes, so you better hustle yourself across the street to his office. Yes, ma'am. I set my coffee cup back on the counter and headed out the door and across the street. Dr. Barstow was the complete opposite of his niece, a big burly man with a thick head of brown hair. He checked me over thoroughly, poking and prodding, looking into my eyes and ears, testing my reflexes and asking me questions about myself and other questions about things for which I'm sure he knew the answers. He looked at me, touched the lump on my head, which caused me to cringe, then sat down at his desk and wrote out his report on my chart. Well, young man, it looks like you lucked out. The lump on your head is pretty nasty, but you don't seem to have a concussion. I would like to get an x-ray just to be sure you don't have a fracture. Otherwise, just take it easy for a few days. Some extra strength acetaminophen should take care of any pain. If you start feeling nauseous, dizzy, or having vision problems, come and see me right away. He tore the lab request sheet that he had filled out off of his pad and handed it to me. As soon as I get the report from the radiologist, I'll give you a call. Thank you, Dr. Barstow. I do appreciate you seeing me on such short notice. I'll go to Lauder City today and get this x-ray done. I need to see my insurance company about my car anyway, I said as I offered my hand. Dr. Barstow shook my hand and said with a grin, if you haven't learned yet, you will. When Abby asks for something, it's hard to say no. When I arrived back at the office, Abby looked and smiled. So, how is the wounded soldier? The doctor says I'll survive, but I'll need lots of TLC, I replied. Huh. He is my uncle, and I love him dearly, but the day that gruff old bird tells someone they need TLC, Earhart and Noonan will land at LAX, Abby replied with a grin. Now I have some important news. Sheriff Barrett called. He wants us to meet him at the Lauder City Police Station at 2 o'clock this afternoon. He said that Pastor Wainwright and Fate will be there, and that we're going to meet with Chief Baldwin, my old boss. He said he has some news for us regarding what's happening with the case. That works out just fine, as your uncle wants me to get an x-ray taken of my skull to check for a fracture. I also need to see my insurance company about my car. I'll call the radiology lab and see if I can get in today, I said as I headed for my office. When I called the lab, I was informed that Dr. Barstow had already called and informed them I would be coming in. They had tentatively booked me for 5 p.m. and had been waiting for me to call in and confirm. With that settled, I called my insurance agent and filled him in on my car having been stolen. He told me to fax or email him a copy of the police report, and he would have the paperwork ready for me to sign when I got there. I hung up the phone and glanced at the clock just as Abby knocked on my office door. It's almost 1 o'clock, and if we have a 2 o'clock, we really need to get going. Let's go then, I said. I grabbed the rental car keys off the desk and headed for the door. And that's the end of Chapter 11. So tune in next Saturday Eve for Chapter 12. And if you're not sure what Saturday Eve is, it's the day before Saturday, which happens to be the day after Thursday. Alrighty. And now you're just dying to hear the Groaner of the Week. Well, the Groaner of the Week is kind of short, but good. A father was redoing the den in his house and decided to do an accent wall with knotty pine paneling. And so as he's busy putting up the paneling in a nice diagonal pattern and making sure everything fits just nice, because he's a bit of a perfectionist, his little boy comes into the room and watches him for a bit, and then finally said, Dad, what are those holes in the wood? And his dad looks at him and says, well, son, those are knot holes. And his son says, well, Dad, if they're not holes, what are they? Alrighty. Have a wonderful Saturday. Don't celebrate too hard tonight or you'll end up with a hangover tomorrow morning. And you want to enjoy your Saturday as much as possible. So enjoy the rest of Saturday Eve, and we'll see you on Tuesday for our cooking and baking and whatever we happen to be doing that day. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.